Late breaking, a Brevard County woman is found guilty tonight in a love triangle murder. Sheila Trott was convicted of bludgeoning her friend to death with a hammer. The victim was the girlfriend of Trott's then estranged husband, a one-time mayor of Indy Atlantic.
This peculiar case is something that blurs the line between the paranormal and the criminal. One day, a respected nurse is found brutally murdered, and her closest friend claims to have seen it all in a dream. Sheila Trott insists her vivid vision of Kelly Brennan's death wasn't just a nightmare but a psychic warning of the tragedy. But the police thought, what if this is nothing but a cover-up for murder? Because they found there was some possible motive. But here's where the story takes a twist. There's no forensic evidence tying Trott to the crime. No fingerprints, no DNA, nothing. Just her chilling account of a dream she couldn't shake. Now investigators are questioning whether Trott's dream was clairvoyance or a memory of what she saw that night. So is Sheila Trott a psychic caught in a nightmare, or a killer hiding behind a dream? Questions were many, but the answers, we have to find out. It all began with a strange dream and a woman who professed to have visions of violence. Kelly Brennan was a respected nurse known in the local hospital for being charming and having leadership capabilities. But on February 15, 2010, everything changed for her all of a sudden. That day, Kelly did not report for work, and after some hours, she was reported missing by her colleagues. Soon after, a 911 call came in, which hinted at something no one imagined: murder. The authorities quickly acted, focusing their search on Mark's Landing, which would soon become crucial to the case. Meanwhile, a police helicopter eventually spotted a body in the woods nearby, and it was soon confirmed to be Kelly Brennan. The details from the autopsy were chilling. She had suffered severe head injuries, a sign that the attack had been violent and fueled by rage. But that wasn't all. Things were getting even stranger. A strange woman came out with a bizarre confession. She said that she had had a dream about Kelly before the body was discovered. She reported having a dream where Kelly was arguing with somebody in a dark place and claimed Mark's Landing was where they were. Naturally, this placed her under suspicion, and the investigators were soon thinking she might be somehow connected to the crime. That woman's name was Sheila Trott, who was a self-proclaimed clairvoyant. She had denied any involvement in Kelly's murder but claimed her dream was just a premonition that led the authorities to the right spot. However, her lawyer, Todd Deratani, did not buy it. He did not believe she had any psychic powers but thought she could be a suspect herself. The whole case turned into a public spectacle with violence, mystery, and the bizarre twist of a dream supposedly guiding the investigation. But who was this Kelly Brennan in the first place? This 46-year-old nurse was one of those people everyone looked up to. She was energetic about herself in a manner that people loved to surround her. Even while having multiple sclerosis, she did not slow down a little. Everyone respected her because of the strength in herself and the work done by her, despite having this disease that could make her pause for the sake of her job. Hence, everyone had a huge shock when she suddenly passed away. Things took a turn when there was an old acquaintance of Kelly that got caught in the act, and that's none but Sheila Trott. As the investigation unfolded, it became evident that Kelly's death was not just a random tragedy. There was a web of complicated relationships, jealousy, and betrayal behind it all. Turns out, 20 years before, Sheila had been working hard at multiple jobs to help her husband Daniel get through flight school. She believed they were meant to be together forever. Meanwhile, Kelly was studying to be a nurse, and in some way her life would get knotted up with Sheila's in a way that would lead to many questions and broken trust. Basically, Sheila and Dan Trott had just started their life on August 26, 1989, building what appeared to be the ideal life. They had two sons named Creighton and Graham, and were very popular within the small town by the Atlantic. Sheila was an accomplished real estate agent, and Dan was working toward becoming a pilot. Things became even better in 2002 when Dan was elected mayor and became the town's power couple. Everybody admired them for their success and influence, a couple who had it all. While Sheila and Dan had this perfect life on the outside, on the inside, things were actually breaking apart. One day, Sheila discovered that Dan had been cheating on her. She noticed very weird little signs, like he was sometimes leaving his wedding ring on the counter. This set alarm bells ringing in her mind, and she even confronted him one day. And instead of explaining, instead of apologizing, Dan grew angry and swore at her, shouted at her like he did not care at all for what she was going through. All this took its toll emotionally on Sheila, and she could no longer take it. Finally, by January 2009, she decided to end their marriage. During all this mess, Sheila found peace only in her then close friend. It was none other than Kelly Brennan. Kelly was married to a guy named Gino Rallo who managed a restaurant. Their marriage was also not exactly smooth sailing either. Sheila felt that something was pretty weird when Kelly so matter-of-fact told her she wouldn't mind if Gino wanted to be with someone else. She thought that did raise some red flags for her. Meanwhile, Dan was living at home but spent much time off with a local cycling group. Interestingly, so did Kelly. The more time they spent together, the more people started to gossip that they were carrying on an affair. Both of them denied it, but Sheila could not ignore the way Dan was acting. He was getting more and more aggressive and defensive. It was not just Sheila who thought that something was wrong. Her mom also believed that Dan was cheating. And it was Kelly he was having the affair with. Lead investigator Major Todd Goodyear suggested that possibly Sheila was jealous and out for revenge because Dan was having Kelly. Because we all know that when we lose love, we grieve, but when we lose in love, we become jealous. But Sheila denied being obsessed with Dan or his relationship with Kelly. Rather, she admitted that she was the one who introduced Dan and Kelly, hoping it might be a way for her to escape her unhappy marriage. Sheila continued to claim she was the one who set this whole thing up, playing matchmaker, but the cops weren't buying it. But everyone mostly believed that Sheila had problems with both Dan and Kelly, and that developed over time, finally blowing up into something violent. Prosecutors also believed that Sheila had been waiting for her opportunity, and when she saw Kelly outside her house, she took her chance. Once Kelly could no longer fight back, Sheila's anger and jealousy totally consumed her. So the investigation started piecing together a timeline of Kelly's disappearance. On February 15, 2010, Kelly missed an appointment with her trainer. They tried calling her, but she couldn't be reached. She was reported missing by her roommate, and they even made inquiries at all the hospitals and rescue services in town, but no one saw her. Simultaneously, Sheila returned from this so-called 4-hour excursion to Walmart. Her sons noticed something was off. She was dizzy, shaking, and acting totally out of it. Then came a 911 call. After the call, paramedics showed up but didn't find anything wrong, so they left. But an hour later, Sheila made another call saying she'd had a seizure and was still acting strange. This time she was taken to the hospital, but after some routine tests, they sent her home. When she got back, Sheila told her boys about the crazy dream where she supposedly saw Kelly's face, and something in her made her feel like she had caused some form of damage. Graham and Creighton were increasingly concerned about their mother and thought that there was just something wrong. She definitely wasn't right, so they called grandmother Margaret Byers. When Margaret got there, Sheila was curled up in bed, shaking and freaking out, insisting they needed to call the police. She again claimed she saw Kelly's face in the dark and even said she might have killed Kelly. This freaked Margaret out, so she immediately called 911, saying Sheila had confessed to harming someone. That 911 call brought the local authorities to the scene. As Sheila continued talking about her strange dream, including hurting someone, the investigators began piecing together. It was coming to their knowledge that Sheila's incoherent chatter was remarkably identical to that of the missing case Kelly Brennan, which had gone missing the previous night. And then, not too many days later, they found Kelly's body in a sandy area about 10 miles away, exactly where Sheila had described it in her dream. As a result, Sheila was arrested for murder. But even then, Sheila told her son, Creighton, "They're charging me with first-degree murder, but it's not true. I didn't do it." One big thing that the prosecution used was when Sheila said in a dream that she might have hurt Kelly. But the big problem was that there was no solid physical evidence that tied her to the crime. No witnesses, no murder weapon, and no DNA. As her defense attorney, Todd Deritani, argued, the prosecution had nothing but a reasonable doubt. But the prosecutor's point was that Sheila had planned Kelly's murder for months, not just snapped when she found out about an affair. They even referred to a telephone call Sheila's mother had made to the police in which she reported that Sheila confessed to the crime. Of course, Sheila denied it all. Sheila spent a long and painful 4.5 years behind bars, awaiting her day in court. When the trial finally got underway in September 2014, it was all circumstantial evidence. But then Major Todd Goodyear came up with a theory. He said that Sheila murdered Kelly, beat her with something heavy, and then stuffed her body in Kelly's SUV to dump it somewhere else. Sheila argued if she really was the killer, how come there was no physical evidence linking her to the crime? Naturally, Sheila's defense attorney, Todd Deritani, was quite confident about winning. He estimated his chances at 80%. However, when the trial actually began, Deritani had already been disbarred for misconduct and was not there. Instead, Sheila was represented by a new group of public defenders. The prosecution had a pretty tough shot with the 911 call by Sheila's mother, which really questioned Sheila's implication in the crime. The trial also brought up Dan Trott, who was involved in a love triangle with Sheila and Kelly. Dan was reluctant to testify, but his testimony could potentially support the prosecution's claim that Sheila killed Kelly out of jealousy over Kelly's affair with him. But the defense wasn't having it. They brought up Kelly's husband, Gino, as another possible suspect. Dan talked about how Gino had attacked him with a jack after breaking into his house. Then Gino had gone after Kelly, choking her in a garage. The defense suggested maybe Gino had a motive to kill Kelly, and he could have been involved in her death. Therefore, the case brought in Gin Rallo also to testify that Sheila did manipulate him to attack Dan. But Rallo said that Sheila would always call him, ranting about Dan and Kelly, claiming they were having an affair, even though he never believed it initially. Then Sheila used emails to stir up Gino's anger toward Dan. One email presented in court showed Sheila calling Dan a liar and criticizing him for his poor manners when it came to spending money. When Sheila was asked for her version of it, she denied ever wanting Gino to hurt Dan's wife or her husband. She said it was just because she was angry regarding money, not out of any jealousy. The prosecutor said Gino probably killed Kelly because of his anger. And Sheila's lawyers tried to use a voicemail Gino left for Dan, but the judge shut it down, marking the voicemail irrelevant. The prosecutor also pointed out that Gino was the only one who knew where Kelly was that night, making him look suspicious. However, Sheila continued to deny any involvement in the act and even proposed that maybe Gino was the responsible one. But luckily, Gino had a good alibi since security footage confirmed that he was at a far drugstore away from where the crime happened. Then Kelly's neighbor, Scott Vickers, claims to have seen a blonde woman on Kelly's lawn that night, which detectives thought explained why Sheila's blood wasn't on Kelly. Sheila was asked if she was wearing a hazmat suit because of the blood evidence, but she laughed it off, calling the idea ridiculous since they were near Disney World. But things took a twist as Sheila's two sons testified for the prosecution. Her oldest son, Graham, said he helped Sheila when she seemed to have a seizure the night Kelly was killed. He also mentioned that after Sheila came back from the hospital, she acted like she was seeing things, including Kelly's face, and even said she might have hurt her. However, Graham didn't tell the authorities about this until much later. So here's the crazy part. Graham, with a look on his face like he couldn't believe he was saying it, revealed that he and his brother, Creighton, had actually gone to Mark's Landing with Sheila the night Kelly was killed. That's when they found Kelly's body. Graham said Sheila was completely in shock, not saying a word about what they'd found. But Sheila's story was different. She explained that her sons brought her to this place and, as they strolled along, by coincidence they ran across Kelly's corpse. Sheila explained that all that time, when leaving the place, she saw just Kelly's feet. Well, this was not even the climax of Sheila's strange story. She recounted how she had a vision in which there was an open ground near them. So they went over there and they found a bag with Kelly's purse in it, and inside, Kelly's driver's license. Sheila's sons became key witnesses for the prosecution, saying that when they found all that, they pretty much stayed out of it, telling Sheila to deal with it herself. The defense, though, had their hands full trying to challenge all of this. They tried to dispute the forensic evidence at Mark's Landing, where Kelly's body was thought to have been moved. There were bloodstains on a fence post that the prosecution said was from Kelly's body being taken out of a car, but the defense wasn't buying it. They argued that maybe those stains weren't tested right, or that they could have come from something totally unrelated, like a spilled drink. Then they attempted to portray Sheila's jealousy over her husband's affair with Kelly as if it wasn't even a real motive. Sheila's divorce lawyer, Elizabeth McHugh, even said Sheila didn't have any problems with Kelly and actually thought Kelly could be a good influence on her kids during the divorce. But despite all the defense's work, the whole thing with Sheila's dream about Kelly's death at Mark's Landing and the visit to the site with her sons stayed at the heart of the prosecution's case. And then Sheila dropped a bombshell. She said her vision wasn't just a dream. It was actually a memory. She claimed that she saw Kelly get attacked by this guy who had threatened her days before, threatening to kill her before actually killing her. The wild part? Sheila didn't do anything about it. No call to the cops, no trying to help. She didn't even explain why she didn't step in. It was all just chilling. While Sheila was in jail waiting for her trial, she wrote a letter to a friend, going into more detail about what happened that night. She said she had gone to Kelly's house to ask her to stop driving by Sheila's place. But while she was there, some strange man attacked Kelly. When she was asked to describe the guy, Sheila said she couldn't. She blamed it on how dark it was. However, the prosecutors considered this letter a confession from Sheila, even though she claimed it was only her version of events. It continued to get even more strange when Sheila revealed that rather than running away or calling the police, she followed his car to Mark's Landing, where she testified she watched him dump Kelly's body and belongings. When they asked her why she didn't call the police, Sheila argued that if she had done the crime, she would have run instead of staying to put herself in a position to get caught. She said that she was showing them that she was innocent. It was tough for the jury to know whether to believe her or not. Then the spotlight shifted when Sheila's mother, Margaret, was presented with a 22-page letter that Sheila had written in jail. This was the first time that Margaret read it aloud, and as she went through it, she got pretty emotional. The letter was pretty graphic, with Sheila describing how Kelly was dragged into the grass and attacked. Margaret, clearly shaken, argued that the letter proved Sheila couldn't have done it, saying that Sheila was just a witness trying to make sense of what she saw. When a reporter asked if the letter sounded like something a murderer would write, Margaret didn't hesitate. "No," she said firmly, unwilling to believe her daughter could be behind Kelly's death. When it was Sheila's turn to testify, she took the advice of her lawyer not to get on the stand, which made things tense in the courtroom. Because it made her look guilty, as if Sheila had written the letter to get something off her chest. But the defense attorney made some thought-provoking points, like Sheila, who weighed as little as 115 pounds, to have moved around Kelly's body, weighing 146 pounds, undetected. So technically it is not possible. Plus, they contended that Sheila had nothing to gain by hurting Kelly and asked the jury to acquit her, thereby indicating that probably someone else was the real killer. Just 3 hours and some minutes in, the jury returned a verdict, and finally they said Sheila Graham Trott was convicted of first-degree premeditated murder for Kelly Brennan's death. The judge read the verdict, and before anyone knew what was happening, Sheila had been sentenced to life in prison with a mandatory minimum. For her mom, however, the news was tough to swallow. She had to grapple with massive guilt, especially after she realized her own actions, like that 911 call, contributed to kicking off the whole investigation. Even though the evidence against Sheila was concrete, she persisted in maintaining her innocence. She continued saying she hadn't killed Kelly and that the killer was still wandering around somewhere. Sheila neither apologized nor felt regret about having helped the cops in locating Kelly's body. However, she claimed feeling guilty over not intervening or attempting to stop the attacking group of people. On the other hand, Kelly's friend Lou remembered her as one of the kindest people. The hospital even had a place called Kelly's Corner, and it remained there after she died as a memorial. What's striking is that, to date, Sheila maintained her stance that it was not her who was the killer of Kelly. Do you believe her? Do you think someone else killed her? Or is it her, but she is just acting like Edward Norton in Primal Fear? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you want to know about some even crazier true crime case, where a 30-year-old cold case coincidentally got solved just because a woman got curious about her bloodline, just click on this video. Trust me, you have never heard of anything like this even in movies. And for more exclusive true crime stories, subscribe to this channel. See you soon.